Hello, everybody. How are we all doing? Mike Dewan here at the Region Sports Network, coming to you live from the Center Bank Studio at the Athletic Performance Factory. I'm joined by Matt Scar for the Region Football Tailgate Show, or excuse me, the wrap-up show. Time to wrap everything up in Week 6. Matt, a great slate of games. We had 4 games on the Region Sports Network. A couple that were maybe a little bit more one-sided, but a lot of games that had conference implications. So we'll talk about a couple, not only in the Duneland Conference, but some others. And again, some ranked teams in action, a couple more statement games. But your overall assessment from what we saw here in Week 6?
Yeah, a lot of good games, a lot of scoring too. A couple of lopsided games, but some of those were expected. But then you'd like to see like Hammond Central, for example, get some points on the board and have a good showing against the Illinois schools.
Yeah.
But
And a lot of happy communities, I think we could say, with homecoming just all throughout the
a
region
lot of
here tonight.
homecoming
A
wins.
lot of homecoming wins, a lot of happy communities, happy teams, happy starts to the weekend. So we wish all those teams that are celebrating homecoming festivities, of course, as well, to have a safe and fun weekend come tomorrow. And I think it all kind of starts tonight. So what we do here on the wrap-up show is we run through all of our games, what we kind of saw here. Matt and I were here on RSN Zone, kind of breaking down all our games as we were going on, but we kind of kept some tabs and some games going on in the region as well. Alongside us, we also have our Strachan Van Til hometown final scoreboard, which we have all but one final score. If anybody was there at the Bishop Knoll Lake Station game, the final score we have reported was 12-6 in favor of the Eagles. I am banking on we get that final score by tonight's. And if you do send it in the chat, and if you are reliable, we'll give you a big shout out. How about that?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. But we'll start from the top and we will work our way to the bottom. We start with the number 3 team, the Andrean 59ers. Took it to the Highland Trojans 52-13 to start with Andrean. It was a team that we were kind of talking about. There's a lot of teams that offensive numbers might be a little bit down, but they're still very dominant. And what we saw last week from Andrean against Hobart was it was their defense that really kind of won them that game. Their offense did the job, but their defense has especially been good. But when this offensive unit puts up points like this, I mean, this team is again at the two-way level. And Matt, I think you and I both kind of agree that. I mean, this team is, although given the third ranking, I mean, this team is very, very dangerous and should be held up there with one of two-ways best.
Right, right. Yeah, they should make a deep run in the playoffs this year, and just like every year, deep run, and it's expected. I mean, I'm sure in that locker room, their goal every year is to win a
Mm-hmm.
state championship.
It is the gold standard at Andrean. They moved to 5-1, and more importantly, they are unbeaten in the conference. One of still 2 teams unbeaten in the conference. Talk about that other one here later in the show. I believe Highland dropped to a 2-4 record. The Andrew Thunderbolts from Illinois, you mentioned before we got on here, took it to the Hammond Central Wolves 52-0. Hammond Central drops to a winless 0-6. Oh, Andrew, one of those teams to be threatened with over there in Illinois. Bowman gets a big win over the North White Vikings. Bowman putting together a pretty solid season after finishing winless last year. These kind of rags to riches stories, Matt. I mean, to see these kind of 1 year turnarounds, they got a new head coach over there in Gary Richardson. I mean, obviously the coverage with Bowman being one of the smaller schools in the area and just being, a school that's obviously had a lot to grow from last year. To see this, kind of 1 year turnaround with Coach Gary Richardson and the pieces he has over there, it's cool to see as just media members here, and just football fans, I guess, if you
Yeah,
will.
absolutely. It's always you get a stir in the air and excitement in the air. When you get a new coach, he
Mm-hmm.
brings in that energy that you may have been lacking from the last coach because one reason or another, the kids get mindsets of, oh, I'm not going to play, or
Mm-hmm.
this kid's his favorite or that kid's his favorite. But with a new coach, new opportunities.
That's all that matters, right?
Yeah. So you get the numbers out and everything.
And then they're producing right away a 30-0 win over the North White Vikings. Bowman, after a strong start to the season, a couple losses in a row, gets back in the win column with a big win over the Vikings from North White. A game we had on the Region Sports Network, a game you and I could kind of go a little bit more in depth with, was a Duneland matchup at the Warpath. The Portage Indians on their homecoming night hosted the Chesterton Trojans. The Trojans took care of business 36-16. Andrew Gove, I believe, had 2 touchdowns to my count. A team that forced a couple turnovers. Hunter Boyd looked good again. And on one connection that really I think stuck out between the both of us with Chesterton is the connection between Boyd and his senior receiver, Gus Wish.
Yeah, they look good. I mean, I think Hunter's pretty much finding his favorite guy now, and they can keep it rolling. And again, this game was a great game. If both teams could play the middle 2 quarters like they have in the for the rest of the season, they'll be in good shape. The first quarter, both teams played sloppy. The fourth quarter, kind of flags galore. But the middle 2 quarters, both teams played very well.
Yeah, I gotta say about Chesterton, who now is coming off of 3 straight wins. They had the win against Laporte a few weeks ago, got the Campbell Meridian Cup, and then obviously getting the win here, the spoiled Portage's homecoming. But to Portage again, another. They kept this game, was 20-9 at half. I believe they even made that score closer, 12-9, before Chesterton scored right before the half. But Portage, the play of Cody Young, the senior quarterback, and a couple of good splash plays from Portage, and I guess although a loss on the scoreboard, I would say kind of one of those games that you get some wins, at least some confidence boosters, and uh, I guess moral victories. I guess in this one for Portage.
Yeah,
Once again,
I mean,
despite the tough start to the season,
you're kind of getting to the point where moral victories aren't enough. But in these last 3 games, they have potential to win.
Yeah.
I think they got Valpo, they got Laporte, maybe.
That checks out. Those are teams that they just haven't played yet. So.
They may have Maryville. I don't know for sure, but
they took on Maryville and they played them. I mean, I think they
lost that one. They did. They did the first week of the season. So they would probably have to be.
I believe they have not played Michigan City yet.
Michigan City. That'll be a tough one for them, but the Laporte and Valpo game they can definitely be in it.
Sure, and I mean this is a team that's again starting to show some fight, just getting better over the course of the season. Big shout out to the crew on hand up there. That was Leo Stoudeker, Doug Nelson, Joe Heinrich, and our cameraman for the evening was Thomas Marsh up there. And thank you, of course, to Portage High School for all the hospitality they've given us all year. I believe we have a final score, our final score of the evening. What do we have? The Lake Station Eagles got 36-31. The Lake Station Eagles keep on flying. Get a close victory over there over the Bishop Knoll Warriors. We did it. We got our final of the evening. Huge.
Before midnight.
Before midnight, right before the clock struck midnight. Lake Station, now I believe that is a 5-1 record for the Lake Station Eagles. Again, this is the best start for them since they went undefeated, and we had to dig way deep. Chris Ramirez, our executive producer, was the one that dropped this on me. But yeah, they went undefeated in 1972. They have not had as good of a start since. So kudos to what's going on over there. Again, we talked about Bowman and making history and kind of that 1-year turnaround. This team, again, has kind of been in the basement in the GSSC for these past few seasons. But kudos to this, obviously, getting these wins, kind of winning those games you're kind of supposed to win here.
Right. They pick up one more victory, and they solidify their winning season.
No doubt about it. That is correct. Yep. And then they have a rushing attack. I got to give a shout out to these 3 guys: Oscar Alderson, David Parker, and Cade McNeil. They let you know they're running the football, but can you stop it? Good luck. The Eagles, a big time win over there against Bishop Knoll. We'll run through a few more games, and we'll step aside here. Your alma mater got the big win at homecoming, sporting a new helmet, 44-8 over the East Chicago Central Cardinals. Alongside that, though, I think the bigger story there is Phil Mason back on the sidelines with his guys, a team that was motivated here tonight, and they got the job done in front of their home crowd.
Yes. The offense keeps rolling, and you know what? They held down an East Chicago Central Cardinals offense that was averaging about 30 points a game. So Griffith giving up 16 a game. You get that 8 there, and I think a lot of that 16 a game is the 40-plus points they gave up against Lowell.
Very, very skewed. And again, Griffith now, despite that one loss, has moved now to a 5-1 record. Their one loss coming to that Lowell team that we'll talk about here in a minute. That's not a team to mess around with. But the Griffith Panthers get the job done on their homecoming, 44-8. The Hanover Central Wildcats got the win against the Munster Mustangs, 30-10. Hanover Central. Watch out for them in the NCC. They're a team to not just be slept on moving forward. And a game on the Region Sports Network that we'll talk about a little bit. We didn't really get a chance to watch it, obviously, with this being an audio-only broadcast of Maryville. You and I talked about it once again on RSN Zone. A very, very scary team, a team that has all the pieces in place, and a team that's going to win those games convincingly, that they're supposed to win the games convincingly. They did that again tonight. They shut down the Port offense that was able to kind of put up points and show fights like Lake Central last week and Chesterton a few weeks ago. But they shut them out 38-0. Maryville, something about playing at Maryville as well in front of their homecoming crowd. I mean, that is that's up there, I think, in modern day in terms of just one of the toughest places to play as an opposed
Yeah,
to
it's there's no track around the field or anything like that, so
brownie
the
points.
fans are up on top of
Yep.
you. It gives it that college stadium
Yep.
atmosphere. It's a great place to play.
No doubt about it. A big shout out to the crew on hand tonight. That was Riley Doyle, Quincy Bell, and Chris Fig. We got a top 5 matchup to talk about next, but that'll be after the break on the Region Football Wrap-Up Show. For Matt Skura, Mike Dewan, we'll be back on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
At Strachan Van Til, we believe grocery shopping should be simple. Now, shopping is easier than ever with our new and improved website. Find what you need fast. Browse your favorite products, add them to your cart, and check out in just a few quick steps. Choose between convenient in-store pickup or let us handle the heavy lifting. From our shelves to your doorstep, skip the lines, shop your way, and spend more time on what matters most. With our rewards program, enjoy incredible savings and personalized offers every time you shop. Shop online now at strachanvantil.com or download our app today.
Hi, I'm Crowd Company's Lantern Man. If you're a contractor, it's my job to make your insurance coverage simple and affordable. Because I know time is money, I'll come to your business. Certificates and bonds are a snap. Wherever you are, whatever business you're in, we've got you covered. As Crowd Company's Lantern Man, I'm your insurance superhero.
Crowd Companies, insurance professionals. Highland, Merrillville, and Michigan City.
Thinking about what to do after high school? Consider a career with Boilermakers Local 374. As a Boilermaker apprentice, you'll earn while you learn. We offer excellent wages and benefits, and as part of our no-cost hands-on apprenticeship program, you'll learn from the best in state-of-the-art training centers and on the job. Become a union Boilermaker and get on your way to a great career. Find out more, visit www.local374.org or call 219-845-1000.
From lighting up Friday Night Football to powering the classrooms that shape the students of Lake County, IBEW Local 697 is proud to support our region's schools and the communities we call home. A career as a union electrician could be your next great move. Your next cap might be a hard hat. IBEW Local 697, powering futures, powering the region.
Four Seasons Mechanical proudly serves Northwest Indiana, providing quality, reasonably priced, reliable service. With a quality and comfort guarantee, the professionals at Four Seasons Mechanical offer a wide range of services in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Whether it's residential or commercial, Four Seasons Mechanical is there 24/7. To find out more, the website is fourseasonsmechanical.com or give them a call at 219-756-7020. Four Seasons Mechanical, your indoor air quality specialist.
Back here for the Region Football Wrap-Up Show. Mike Dewan, Matt Skura, Justin Cole, our producer. Still a couple RSN personnel guys here. Aaron Svetlin holding it down. Zach Miller cleaning up the place, cleaning up our mess, taking away any incriminating evidence that we may have from what was a fun night here, Matt, at the Athletic Performance Factory at the Centier Bank Studio. But we got a great game to talk about here, a game that really went down to the wire, a top 5 matchup. The Lowell Red Devils stun the Hobart Brickies 20-17. RDP now moves to 5-1 on the year. Hobart drops to 4-2, and got to give a big shout out to Dylan Basacci, who drilled a game-winning field goal as time expired. You and I talked about as the results kind of came in, and just a signature win for Casey McKim. And now, looking so far ahead, yes, now an undefeated team in the NCC, along with Andrean, who they play in Week 9, Lowell does. But also, looking beyond that, these two teams may play again in the sectional, and what is a group that is, frankly, it's wide open. And these are two teams especially that are ever so hungry for a sectional title, because it's been a minute.
Oh, yeah, they both haven't won a sectional title in quite a few years. New Prairie's pretty much dominated that sectional for the last 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. And again, the Lowell head coach was over at New Prairie dominating the sectional. Right. So it's going to be a tight race over there. It just depends on the draw,
I would say so. It's all what it comes down to. But for Casey McKim, now 5-1 with their one loss coming to Crown Point. coaches doing this in the first year they're with the program. This is just something that is relatively rare. You look at some of the top coaches around the area, at least their first full season. Bill Marshall had a pretty solid year in his first full campaign, but like Craig Buzia, you look at some of the top other coaches. Guys that kind of struggled to kind of find their footing at one point. This is not the case at Lowell. How rare is this to see what a new coach in a new program is doing, hitting the ground running, getting these signature wins in hostile environments?
Yeah, I think well, in Lowell's instance, so a lot of these guys are returning players.
Yeah.
Where coming in at Griffith when Russ Rackey moved in, I think he finished 6-5 that first year, made it to the sectional championship, lost I believe it was Twin Lakes. We had a lot of returners, but we didn't have a lot of guys that had varsity experience. So because at that point it was next man up, but you were pretty much playing 1 year on varsity as a senior.
Yep.
Because there were just so many good players going through the program. And then the next year it exploded and you started to win 10, 12, 13 games a year. And, but again, Lowell was a young team the last few years, the numbers were down a little bit. And, with the new coach coming in, brought the excitement, numbers are up, he's got these kids motivated and hungry, and he brought the success over to the program.
Now, flipping on the other side of the coin to recap on Lowell, Brady Kowinski had a touchdown, again, a big special teams play. As time expired, these two teams are hopefully this might not be the last dance these two teams have this year, but for Hobart, after a 4-0 start where they really looked unbeatable, got as high as 2 in our poll, have now lost these last 2 games. Last week's loss against Andrean was one that was, I guess, forgettable, and this was a real chance at a get-back game, and they kind of fell flat here again. This Hobart community, I can only imagine, how hungry they are for now what is also a wide-open sectional in the same grouping as Lowell. How does Hobart, again, flush this? This is a tough 2-game stretch, and now the NCC, they're going to need some help now with 2 losses in the NCC. That's almost too big of a hole to kind of dig yourself back out of. But how do they respond now going forward after their 2 biggest tough tests, their 2 toughest tests of the year, and they both failed them?
Yeah, at this point now, it's just, you watch the game film tomorrow morning and figure out what went wrong. It was a close game. They didn't get blown out or anything. It was last second field goal. Could have gone either way. Just watch the game film and then start again from day one. Now it's get ready for the playoffs.
Now, you've been on some talented teams, both as a coach and as a player. How do you kind of flush that? And not like you maybe want to think this way, but the truth hurts sometimes. And when you have 2 losses in the NCC, when you lost to Andrean, you lost to Lowell. Those are 2 teams that now gain a game on you, and you need a lot to happen to be in the NCC. How do you turn that goal off and kind of cross it off your checklist and keep things moving forward? That's a tough thing to do, I'd imagine.
Well, with Hobart anyway, it's motivation to get Lowell next time.
Yeah.
Now they got you, they got the confidence and everything, but you can get them. It's the same thing. You beat somebody early on. Several Griffith teams beat Andrean early in the year, and then Andrean comes back and beats them in the playoffs. Motivation. We're not going to get embarrassed again.
Yep.
They're not beating us on our home field again. That type of thing. It'll motivate the kids. It motivates the coaches. It makes it an extra special week.
It only builds up a lot of hype for that potential rematch. But these two would have to meet in the sectional as they are in the same sectional grouping, but that's for later down the line. The Lowell Red Devils, a big-time win at the Brickyard, 20-17. They move again to 5-1, and more importantly, unbeaten in the NCC. A game on the Region Sports Network at Lake Central. The Indians hosted the Michigan City Wolves, coming in at 8 on our ranking, and Michigan City utilized a big 3rd and 4th quarter, mostly a 4th quarter. This game was 20-17, I believe, at the end of 3. And that final finished out 37-17 in favor of Michigan City. A lot of great play from the combo of Triniston Hart and Zaire McKinney. This Michigan City defense forced a couple field goals and played just more complimentary football, setting themselves up with short fields. We'll start with Michigan City. What'd you see from them? And again, this team rebounding after that very humbling loss to Maryville last week.
Yeah, they played better on defense this week. They gave up some big plays, but they didn't give up big plays that resulted in touchdowns.
Yeah.
They forced Lake Central bend but don't break defensive mentality. You know, they forced Lake Central into field goals instead of letting them score touchdowns. You know, Lake Central had 2 field goals, so that potentially, took off 14 points as opposed to just they got 6.
Right.
So it's a different game if you get those 2 touchdowns instead of the field goals.
And for Lake Central, what have we kind of seen? We've been watching Lake Central a fair amount as these past few weeks, and now a 2-4 start after we've seen a little bit more promising starts in previous seasons, kind of an easier start to the schedule because they're dealing in schedule to, especially those final 3 weeks of the year where they got to take on. I think they still got Valpo, they got Chesterton. I believe they got to take on Maryville sometime in there as well. And that is not easy. And at this point, you're only looking up at the rest of your schedule. How does it? It's been a rough start, I guess, for Lake Central. And your overall assessment on, what maybe are the things that potentially going wrong, and how do you kind of fare with moving the rest of the season where these opponents coming up? It's oh boy, another 6A sectional hits, and it's oh boy. So things got to obviously kind of shape it up.
You really can't change your philosophy. You can't do away with what you've been doing. You might. I think we saw Lalich a lot tonight, more so than in the previous games. Maybe you put Lalich and Reddick in and keep them both in, and play them both a lot more. Gives you an option of having a wide receiver pass or halfback pass or something like that. Or Reddick's a playmaker.
Yep.
He needs to be on the field, but Lalich has played a little bit better at quarterback tonight.
It was definitely a very interesting story to see Lalich get the bulk of the snaps here tonight. Played solid, had a couple turnovers, and again, probably something that you're probably accustomed to when you're putting a sophomore behind center. But this is all Michigan City. A big fourth quarter gave them the win, 37-14. Michigan City now moves to 4-2, with both of their losses coming to Maryville and Lafayette Jefferson, 2 teams ranked in the top 10 in the class of 5A. One game that we played on Saturday is the 10th ranked Morton Governors against the Calumet Christian Patriots. The Boone Grove Wolves got the win over the River Forest Ingots 42-24. Boone Grove responding after last week's, off week when they were to play Wheeler. A game we could definitely pump the brakes on. There's only so much you could really say about this team that now has 33 straight regular season victories. Whatever that number is in the Duneland, I keep it 24, 25,
something like that.
Something like that. That is very, very impressive. And they beat, again, a team that's always been very, very tough in the Duneland, despite what this year's record says, the Valparaiso Vikings. 35-14 was the final in favor of the Bulldogs. Crown Point gets it done once again. It seems like, especially when they're at home too as well. Again, this is a team, and you can kind of go in more into this, but this is a team not like those Crown Point teams that they're going to put a running clock on you in a quarter. They're going to just wear you down, beat you down, and kind of similar to something where Andrean, where they might lean on their defense a little bit more to set up short fields, and more importantly, they forced plenty of turnovers on Kellen Hosick and that Valpo offense.
Yeah. They have like 3 interceptions tonight? Maybe more than that.
Special teams looked good. Griffin Van Titchell was a name that had a couple returns, couple big plays, but especially that Crown Point defense really sped up that Valpo.
Yeah, they got a dominant defense, and offense is just grind it. You see a few big plays here and there, but it's not the explosive offense that they had last year where they could score on any given play. They still have that potential, but they just they're more satisfied with 15 play drives, putting 6 points on the board, and then shortening the game up and making you press to score.
And Valpo, again, a real struggle offensively, dropping to 1-5. It's still a team that it feels like they're hanging in some of these games, like 35-14 against Crown Point. It was a halftime score where they were down by 2 scores, 7-21. But this Valparaiso team, it's weird to feel like they're a 1-5 team because although yes, they did lose some pieces, and this is definitely there's been some more talented teams in Valparaiso's past, but it's just been kind of one of those years, I feel like, for the Vikings.
Yeah, they're not getting blown out.
No.
It was a 1-score game against Michigan City. It's,
1 score against Penn. They took Brother Rice, who's a very good Illinois team, to they played them, it's a tough team to play, but, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and looking at the score, it looks close. Maybe it wasn't in doubt for Crown Point, but it was 14. Crown Point was up 14-7 at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like they were ever out of it. But you've watched games or played in games where it's like it's close, but
Yeah.
the scoreboard's close, but it doesn't feel like it's
Yeah.
close, So I mean, there's a potential for the Vikings to turn it around, but I mean, they still got Maryville on the schedule, I believe,
Yes. Yeah,
and
they got the
so. But they got the sectional, 5A sectionals. I mean, teams that they played close games with: Chesterton,
Mhm.
Michigan City. So it's
teams that they shot themselves. Truthfully, I mean, being at that Chesterton game, especially, and looking at the amount of penalties that Valparaiso racked up against Michigan City, teams that they frankly shot themselves in the foot against.
right.
So,
They could turn it around. There's got to be some confidence in there. Yeah, they're down, but you know, there's not a doubt. They know they can beat these teams if they clean some things up.
I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But yeah, they're a very interesting team. I think, especially once the sectional rolls around. Again, obviously, given where we are in the season and the Doolin standings, you are very much on the outside looking in. But I think bigger things matter when trophies are on the line. It's win or go home. But Crown Point, I think I could ask you before we kind of wrap this game up at least. Crown Point 6-0. They control their fate in the Doolin. What do you say is their floor for them once we get to the postseason? You were to say with how much they're rolling, what would
I mean, the standard is state or bust. That's just what it's been the last 2 years. I think Crown Point fans, if they don't get to minimum semi-state, is probably a disappointing season.
I would agree.
As much as the success you've had, if you don't make it to a certain point, people call you a bust. And it's harsh for high school kids to say that, because of all the success and everything. But you'll have they play a weak schedule, or they play this, or they should play an Indianapolis school, or they should play this. This isn't college football where we sign a deal here and go wherever. You get to play who you play, and you play. You already got, what do they play? 9 regular season games.
Yep.
You got 7 of them are conference games, so you got 2 choices. Long-standing tradition with Lowell, so I don't see that game going away anytime soon. So you pretty much got one choice, and it's week 2. A lot of the schools that you want to play, the Center Groves, the Brownsburgs, they're playing teams from Cincinnati, Ohio, and all that stuff. I don't see them losing those teams, so they're in a tough position because you're beating the teams that you're supposed to beat, but everybody that's on the outside looking in wants you to do more, and it's hard.
It is. It is. They're in an interesting. I mean, it's a good problem to have where you kind of get to that standard where it's like, okay, can anybody catch up, or do we really have to venture out? Obviously, they played Pike in kind of that second week, and they played a bunch of different opponents in kind of that 1 week they have at their choosing. Last year they had Arizona College Prep. I believe the year before they had Chicago Taft. So, but I mean, this is a team right now. Again, that's the sky's the limit, as you said, and we did a little bit of scoreboard watching here today. What was it? Brownsburg took on Westfield, right? What was it?
Yeah, Brownsburg, the number 1 team in the state, ranked nationally, beat Westfield. I think it was 14-10. I believe it was. So a great game. Westfield's in the northern half of the state, possible semi-state opponent. Brownsburg would be a possible state opponent. So.
And big thing for those region schools, I think, I believe the lower number regional, or I guess it would benefit, teams coming out here. I believe the home would be
it'd benefit Crown Point the most.
Definitely. From what we saw last year, they came out flat against Westfield and never really they got hit early and never really recovered.
Yeah, so I think the way it works out is if everybody, the least amount of home games gets the home team, because it's in the past it was like the odd sectionals had this way, the even sectionals. I think I read it on the IHSA. It's all the same for everybody this year. So the odd sectional, I believe, or the lower number sectional would be the home field advantage, pending if they didn't play home the week before and the other team played away.
Yep. So
so
we shall see. Before you know it, it'll be that time. It's super, super hard to believe as we almost cross off week 6 on our yearly itinerary. I got to give a big shout out. I almost forgot about the crew at the Lake Central and Michigan City game. From top to bottom, the play-by-play guy there was Michael Bradner. The color guy was Steve Pacholski. Zach Sinelli always doing a great job as the producer and the cameraman upstairs. was Martin Murillo Jr. The Wheeler Bearcats were back in action, coming in at 6 in our poll. They move on to a 5-0 record, 42-26. It's one of those scores that it's like Wheeler's been kind of killing teams all year. Got to do a little bit more research on this one, but Westside obviously hung in there. You mentioned how much of a test this would be coming into this one. I don't know if Wheeler maybe started a little bit slower kind of this time around, and who knows, maybe that week off after last week's just crazy events that happened at Wheeler High School, maybe kind of slowed this team down a little bit.
Yeah, I would
6.
like to see the score by quarters just to see how it went.
Mhm.
If Wheeler got up big and Westside got all their points late in the game,
Sure.
or how it went, if it was close early or what. It'd be interesting to see that. But I mean, offense keeps rolling.
Yep.
Defense gave up a few points. The speed could have been a factor.
That's true, but
You
it
know,
still takes a bit for Wheeler
but
to respond in that
Big
manner.
matchup next week.
That's for sure.
Wheeler Calumet.
That's going to be an exciting one. We'll talk about those Calumet Warriors right up next. But the Wheeler Bearcats, 42-26, big win over Westside. And yeah, you talked about Calumet, a game that was on the Region Sports Network. They looked good. I mean, 59-7 at their homecoming game against the Whiting Oilers. I mean, that was total beatdowns. Their defense scored a couple times. Had a touchdown. Bryce Brandon had 3 touchdowns to his name. Calumet, this team's clicking on all cylinders, a couple new faces, and from what we saw here tonight, they're gearing up for it and playing at the level of those Griffiths and those Wheeler teams in the GSSC.
Yeah, they looked like a complete team tonight. Watching them, they looked fantastic on defense. They looked great on offense. Pretty much could do whatever they wanted to do on offense. I think a few times they struggled throwing passes. The line had a little bit of protection issues, but you're up 3 or 4 touchdowns. You really don't have to worry about that.
And I'm interested to see how Calumet steps up to the challenge. Their one loss this year was to Highland. Outside of that, in terms of competition, I'm not sure if they've seen a team similar to a Wheeler or a Griffith at this point. And to gear up to get mentally ready for potentially your toughest opponent, what is that week like? Maybe as a coach or as a player, kind of in that case.
Yeah, I mean, they're just going to have to step it up in the weight room and everything like that. I think it's going to be they should be getting it up for everybody, but the Calumet Griffith game will probably be, I mean, they'll be fired up for that game. It's big rivalry with Calumet and Griffith. But, again, the Wheeler game's first, and that could be deciding the conference championship right there. It'll definitely be the winner of that game's a front runner, because you got one of the two other, your other top opponents in your division, and back-to-back weeks, I think, for both of them.
You don't need much coffee or energy drinks to gear up for kind of those games. So
No.
that'll be one to definitely look out for next week. Calumet taking on our then 6th-rated Wheeler Bearcats. Calumet really knocking on the door. They might just crack our top 10 list next week to really make an intriguing matchup against the Wheeler Bearcats. For the crew up there, Andrew Mild was our play-by-play guy. Nick Russ was on color. Clint Klaus did a great job on production tonight, and our cameraman was Paul Vela. Mark, it's been a day. As always, any final thoughts here? I called you Mark again, didn't I? Oh my gosh, that's how you know it's late, right? When I called
I will have a name tag next time I'm on, so that way I'll just hide it off to the side. That way
I'm gonna give a big plug to one of our sponsors. I get it mixed up with one of our sponsors' names. So, but Matt, any final thoughts entering closing the book on this? Now entering the final third of the season.
Yeah, just excited, for the last few weeks of the regular season and getting into the playoffs and all the, continue win streaks and seeing maybe some surprise conference champions, people you didn't expect at the beginning of the year to be where they're at, and some other teams to keep it rolling and get into the top 5, maybe the top 3 because they're playing so well,
And then we get to it. Then we get to the nitty-gritty. Before you know it, all flies by, ladies and gentlemen. Before we wrap it up here, I got to let you all know, outside of the football, we got a big wrestling event coming up here at the Athletic Performance Factory. October 5th, we have the preseason pinfall party where we recognize all the wrestlers, both boys and girls from local schools around here from Northwest Indiana. We'll have live streams left and right, interviews with players, with coaches, and with all wrestling personnel. Feel free to come out. We'll have a good time here, and we'll have all the broadcasts on the Region Sports Network. Again, October 5th, That's a Sunday. The Bears do not play, so Bears fans, do not worry. It'll be a fun time here at APF. Again, celebrating all the wrestlers. A lot of talented wrestlers, talented programs, some great coaches, and overall a great time. That is the preseason pinfall party. Matt. It's perfect.
You said and that'll be boys and girls.
Boys and girls. Got to give a big shout out again. It's truly unreal how much the girls wrestling program and sport as a whole has grown. And it's kind of something we're seeing even with football right now and flag football kind of growing up. And it's something that there's just so many people and so many athletes, and it's outside of, not only the wrestling and the pinfall party, but it's just what makes this industry so fun. Just there's so many fantastic athletes to give shout outs for. And that's another sport now with that, recently being a sanctioned sport. It's kind of gives, it shines a light to some talented athletes once again.
The girls are getting their due, and they can have chase their own state championships now, and better opportunities there for them.
Win some trophies for their respective schools. We got so many talented wrestlers, so many talented athletes. That is what makes our job so fun. Well, that'll wrap it up here for week 6 on the Region Sports. Now, for everybody still here at the Athletic Performance Factory, for Zach Miller, our coordinating producer, for Justin Cole, who was our producer all night, for Aaron Svetlin, still sticking around despite his job being done a little bit ago, still just a football guy, loving it here, doing the scoreboard for us. For management, for Chris Ramirez, our executive producer, our operations manager, Rich Castillo, our sales manager, Heather Ames, and for Matt Skura, not Mark. It's obviously getting late, so, that's when we kind of cut the camera. So for Matt, I'm Mike Dewan. Thank you all for tuning in with us all night. Good night, everybody. This has been a production of the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
Old Man Winter is just around the corner, and that means temperatures will soon begin to drop. And a region winter is not the time to be left out in the cold. The professionals at Economy Electric Heating and Cooling can tune up that old furnace or install a new unit that can last for years. Your family deserves to stay comfortable this winter, and with 24/7 emergency service, comfort is just a phone call away. Economy Electric Heating and Cooling, 219-923-4441. Or for more info, the website is forajobdoneright.com.
Earn while you learn from the best hands in the business. The Bricklayers Allied Craft Workers for Indiana, Kentucky Apprenticeship. That's right, this is a paid apprenticeship.
I'm getting an education while learning a trade and getting paid for it.
The thing that surprised me the most about this apprenticeship program is the respect I have received after the proper time and training.
Classes start soon, so apply now. There are training centers throughout Indiana and Kentucky. We are the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers for Indiana, Kentucky Apprenticeship. The best hands in the business.
Flip the switch, a light turns on. Press the button, machines and instruments come to life. Touch the screen, communicate with the world. Simple tasks, guaranteed results, every second of every day. That's the power of power. And that's the power brought to you by the NECA contractors and electrical workers of Local 531.
Calling all current and future homeowners in the Northwest Indiana area. Whether you're buying or selling, Brent Wright is here to make your real estate journey smooth and successful. With years of experience, personalized service, and a deep knowledge of the market, Brent will help you find the perfect place or get the best deal for your property. Call today at 219-406-7195 and take the first step toward your real estate goals. Contact Brent Wright, the right way to buy and sell real estate.
Life isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet moments that matter the most. Of effort, of a dream taking root. And behind those moments, there's trust. Thank you for trusting Sentier Bank with those moments and making us a part of your story. Thank you for the opportunity to earn your trust.
The Athletic Performance Factory is Northwest Indiana's premier athletic training center. The 40,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility features batting cages, a sand training room, a new outdoor turf infield, and so much more. Check out the facility for one of their daily classes at 3150 45th Street in Highland. Interested in signing up for team workouts or individual lessons? Check out their website at trainapf.com. or contact them at 219-750-1087. Athletic Performance Factory, where athletes are made.
At Blyce, we're used to having the athlete shop at our store.
Down, sit, put.
But sometimes they get carried away. Blyce, this is where the athlete shops.